Welcome. In this episode, I have the privilege of interviewing Chris Houghtaling, where he shares his origin story. Chris is the CEO for RaiseLink. It's a startup that's positioned to disrupt the startup ecosystem. It was an awesome conversation. We started where it all began for Chris. He talks about the beginnings of his professional career, how that transitioned into a move to Vienna, Austria, the awesome and impactful work he had with Fortune 200 companies along the way, how he's mentored through organizations like the National Science Foundation's I-Corps program and the venture mentoring team. Chris has volunteered with organizations like the World Bank and startup accelerators. He has served as a professor at Austrian universities, published leading sales journals, and contributed to the book Cultural Agility. He holds an MBA from the University of South Carolina and the University of Vienna, and a marketing degree from the University of Kentucky. It was an inspiring conversation. Chris is a wealth of insight. I highly recommend you watch the whole discussion. It's accessible to those at any stage in their career. So without further ado, I give you Chris Houghtaling. And we're live. Chris, it's good to see you.
Great seeing you, Logan, and thank you for that great introduction. Appreciate you having me on today.
Got it. I've been looking forward to this.
So have I.
We've got some overlapping fields of interest. We share a couple of communities. I think I got to point out the FAU Tech Runway behind you. I love the representation.
Exactly. We both went through the Adams Center of Innovation and Kevin Cox's Veterans Program as well at the Business College.
Love Kevin Cox. He's a pillar of the entrepreneurial community in Boca and South Florida as a whole.
Definitely is, yes.
You know, since our first conversation, I felt like there was a lot of shared understanding and reciprocity between us, not just of common communities and shared communities, but I love the way that you showed up. You've represented what you're working on. Big respect for your background. I mean, just hearing a little bit of where you've come from in your career is impressive. To use an analogy, you're hitting with lead gloves, and in the arena of entrepreneurship, you've got some pretty serious, accomplished co-founders on your current venture. I would love to get into more on where you're at now and where you're going. But I think that the theme of our conversation should focus on where you're coming from first to sort of set that origin story in place.
Right.
With that being said, Chris, I'd start off with a big question, which is, where did it all begin?
So I think there's two beginnings. One is the entrepreneurial spirit, and then the idea of what I'm working on today. So with me personally, the entrepreneurial spirit is something that actually I developed early on. When I was 8 years old, I actually went door to door selling Christmas cards and Hanukkah and other items because I wanted a racetrack, and my parents told me to wait for Santa, and I didn't want to wait. So I found in the back of a comic book back then, right? You could sell things for Christmas, gain points and get a prize. And wow, there was my racetrack. So I started there and, just kept doing different things all the way through high school, university. And the tinge of everything I did, even through high school and university and then into my career, it involved two things. It involved building teams or training, and it involved either starting up a team or a unit or turning a team and the unit around. So I did that across many industries. In tech in the 1990s, I was one of the three original members of US Robotics back when modems still made noise, of their global government sales operations team. It was a great opportunity. I'm in my mid-20s. I'm the only one on the team of the three of us at corporate headquarters, because the other two are, which is Chicago, the other two are obviously in DC. And everything that fell under the senior VP level, and ended up more or less landing on my shoulders to try to figure out, in addition to my sales job. So that was a great experience of being thrown right into, executive level environment, but very early in my career. And from there, I continued to do different things with sales, sales leadership, sales management. Um, did my MBA in international business. Part of the degree was at the Business Economics University of Vienna, Austria. The other half at South Carolina. And I actually met my wife, who's Austrian, and we've been back and forth from Austria and the U.S. a couple times. But the last time we went back over to Austria, which was about 15 years ago now, and we spent almost 10 years there. I started my own sales consulting and coaching company for global Fortune 200. So I had clients all across Europe, help them turn around or train their sales teams, or a lot of the work I was doing was working with sales managers as sales coaches, not necessarily managers. And I've always likened sales to also entrepreneurship, because you're out there on your own. Even if you're in retail, you're leaving everyone else behind. You're going off one-on-one with the customer, and you've got to find a way to succeed. So you have to have an entrepreneurial spirit, I think, for being a great salesperson. While I was doing that, I actually was asked to join a World Bank project called Pioneers of the Balkans. It was uh, actually a European Commission and World Bank project, where they wanted to help build the entrepreneurship environment around the former Yugoslavia, to help them after, everything happened there with the breakup of Yugoslavia and the war that ensued. And that was a great experience. I got to travel multiple countries. It was about a 4-month program, and got to work with about 350 entrepreneurs, coaching them, mentoring them, doing workshops with them, and getting them ready for pitch competitions. Uh, Happy to say 5 of the 7 there were 7 industry categories in the pitch competition, the finals, and 5 of the 7 winners were startups that I and a couple other people heavily mentored. So I seem to be able to turn that training, that coaching, that mentoring, that sales, the building of teams into being able to mentor startups. And from there, it just blossomed into working with dozens of accelerators, incubators, lecturing at the Technical University of Vienna's innovation program. Their startups, from bachelor students all the way up through faculty, which would be similar to people going for the NSFI core here in the US. Worked for a VC, helping him expand his European Super Angels Club across Europe. Worked on other government projects in partnership with VCs and others. And this is where I actually turned the entrepreneurial or turnaround corporate life into startup life, and started the next half of my journey.
You covered a lot just there. That was
Yeah,
several years of a journey covered in a very short period of time. I appreciate you taking us through that.
of course.
You One of the first things you mentioned, Chris, was your being exposed to an executive environment early on in your career.
Yep.
How old were you roughly during that time?
I was 27, 26, 27, 28.
That I'm, I can imagine that was equal parts exciting and challenging.
Definitely it was. US Robotics was one of the hottest companies at the time. Stock was doubling almost every quarter. Uh, when I started, modems were going at 28.8 kilobits per second. Pictures were coming in like this on the screen, and you didn't get 100 pictures in a second. You were happy if you got one. To the point where we actually launched DSL, high speed internet, right? So I was there through a lot of transitions, which was really exciting to see the technology changing. It was really exciting to work in an area where I could take technical information and turn it into layman's terms, and sell it to people, I remember talking to the hurricane hunters. They were trying to figure out how to take the data that they were transmitting by radio from the airplanes in the middle of a hurricane to land, and then transmitting it not by radio, but through higher speed internet over the land. So using our products on both ends, right? From radar station to their main area where they had the servers. Yeah, just a lot of different exciting opportunities, providing DSL for the K4 troops. One of the first DSL units used by the military in testing. I got to put in the FedEx box, ship, and then talk to them as they're using it to see how it's working.
That's awesome.
So yeah, these were all really exciting times. But then on the flip side, I'm going into conversations with vice presidents and regional directors, and working on, how do we divide up the customers? Because, most companies in sales divide their customers up by zip codes or geography. As we know, the US government doesn't have that. So what makes it's one thing that you can say, okay, they're at Fort Jackson, Fort Gordon, whatever. But then how do you pull that data out of hundreds of thousands of lines of sales data? And do that process back in the 90s when you had Excel and Access basically. So there were a lot of great conversations that really put me into areas where I could grow as somebody having those conversations with senior people, much more than my time at the National Guard, where, yes, I was working, I did combat communications, field artillery unit in Kentucky. I was at the TUC, and so we had all the senior people coming through whenever we were there. And that was the great experience. But here I was not just in the process of welcoming, them into the headquarters and making sure they the right access and everything and get to where they need to be. But here I was actually going in and doing the work with them. So it was, I became part of that executive team in a way without really having yet that title and authority. And that, I think, was a great experience leading first to myself starting the sales consulting and coaching company, but then also working in the startup ecosystem.
What was that time like before you made the transition into starting your own sales and consulting company, where you were contemplating where the move, or you started to become aware of the drive towards that, and ultimately what pushed you over the edge into that decision to branch off on your own?
So that's a great question, and it's actually wasn't as hard of a decision as you would normally think, because for a fact. So we moved back to Austria. When I first moved to Austria for my MBA, I took 60 hours of German lessons. So enough to order a beer and talk to the ladies in the bars. And that's actually one way I met my wife. We were at a cocktail reception at the university, and the bank she worked for was sponsoring our program. And somebody came over and he said, "Hey, I'm Heiko." And I said, "I'm Chris." He goes, "You speak German. Let's speak German." I said, "Look, I've had 60 hours, a few drinks, and, at a bar, I can talk to the girls and stuff. But beyond that," he goes, "Oh, okay, I understand. Stay here." He left, comes back 5 minutes later with this beautiful young lady. And he says, "Okay, speak German." So she introduces herself, said, "Ich heiße Elizabeth." I said, "Ich heiße Chris. I'm Chris. I'm Elizabeth. I'm Chris." Then she asked me in German, "When did you come to Austria?" Now, this is a very cultural difference, right? Americans always are thinking forward, right? Our history is short. We don't look back. We look forward. Um, Europeans have long, glorious history. Um, and so I answered, "I'm leaving in December." So then she asked, "When are you leaving?" And I understood or thought she was asking, when did I come to Austria? So I said, I came in May. And we switched to English, talked to English for 2 more hours. And then she was leaving and I wanted her phone number. So I had to walk up in front of, like board of directors of the bank and her boss and all of her colleagues and people from the university, because she was getting ready to leave. I said, "I really enjoyed talking to you. I want to meet you again. Can I have your number?" So she gave me her number, and, the rest is history. But anyway, as I mentioned, we moved back and forth a couple of times. And when we moved back to Austria the last time, to that point, I still did not have, my German was still not good. It really was not. I mean, it could have been first grade level maybe. The first thing I said is, I've got to take 6 months full-time German before I start working. Otherwise, I never will learn the language. So I did that. And while I'm doing that, it was 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. As I'm doing that, I'm thinking, okay, where am I going to work? How am I going to, earn money, build a family, everything else? And my background, sales. Sales, you have to know culture and you have to be able to speak the language. That's a little hard if you don't speak German in Austria. So I said, I think this is a great opportunity for me to do what I've always loved, and that is help other people get better at what they do. And I can do that by opening up a sales consulting and coaching company. And so that was the origin of why I decided to do it and how I got there. And, all the time I was there, 95% of all of my activities were in English, were outside of Austria. I had a few engagements in Austria where they were nice enough to let me use a mix of German and English. But I can tell you, after an 8-hour day of trying to talk even to a very small group of sales leaders in German, I was done. I was exhausted because my brain still, actually the PowerPoint slides were still in English because I could not translate them. I didn't have enough time to hire somebody to translate them, and I could not translate them all myself because my written German is still not there.
And Google Translate wasn't out yet.
Well, not to the quality it needed to be, especially with I don't like to write paragraphs on PowerPoint slides. So, I'm a firm believer that there are note cards, not your speech written out in text. And no Google Translate that was going to be effective. Anyway, I did that, and that's kind of why I chose, because I knew that if I was to go into a sales role, I would not be effective. So that's why I chose to start my own company. I always wanted to do this, and it was great. I spent 30 weeks a year for 2 weeks traveling the UK, doing sales management, coaching, training, and coaching with the sales leaders, teaching them how to be coaches. I got to travel to Spain and Italy and Switzerland and Sweden and Germany, and I don't know how many countries, just doing the consulting. And it was great. I loved it. It was a lot of time. I helped a lot of people, and maybe the best takeaway that I had from that is I did a project for a $1 billion division of a major manufacturing company in Austria for their international sales team. So they brought everyone in from around the world for a 1-day session, and it was about 60 people. So I had to cram a lot in, recognize people with 1 week of experience to 30 weeks of experience and everything else. And had about 30 different cultures or countries represented. I was sitting at dinner with 6 or 7 of them, all from different countries. And I said, okay, you had some Americans sitting here in Austria telling you all about sales. And sales is very personal, right? You have to make personal connections, which means language culture makes a difference. So I'm curious, with what I talked about today, what we shared today, what doesn't work or apply for your countries? And they went around the room and they said, no, actually, the way you talked about, treat everyone with respect because they have a brain, treat everyone with respect because they have a heart, and treat them as they want to be treated. That works everywhere. And then the nuts and bolts of sales and whatnot works everywhere. The funniest thing was, though, there was somebody from China. He goes, one difference in China. In the rest of the world, you sign the contract and then you go have a drink. In China, we meet, we have drinks, and then we go sign the contract. That's the only difference they came up with. So that was a really great experience that taught me, or confirmed, I should say, that my philosophy that if you treat everyone well, you treat them with respect, recognize everyone who has the same goals and wishes and desires and dreams of being successful, providing for their families, these things, and really treat people like they have a brain and a heart, then you're going to be okay.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Treat everyone like they have a brain. Treat everyone with respect because they have a brain. Treat everyone with respect because they have a heart.
Yep.
The golden rule. Treat it.
Basically, it's the golden rule.
It's awesome. Awesome.
I mean, that's how I want to be treated.
No doubt.
So
Love that. How did that phase in your career tee you up and transition you into working with the VC group you mentioned?
so the VC group came a couple of steps through. So as I was doing this, and networking and meeting people in Vienna, in Austria, that's where I was asked to join this project in the former Yugoslavia and the Balkans. And that's where everything started. I met so many wonderful people. What's great about the startup ecosystem, again, around the world, is we have great people that are trying to help others. And it just matched beautifully with my philosophy. I was doing the sales training, or consulting and coaching and being a sales trainer in the past because I wanted to help people get better at what they do, to be more successful, to reach goals beyond what they thought were possible. And that's what the startup ecosystem is about. So I did that with the World Bank and was lucky enough to gain quite a positive reputation, asked to continue to do things. And that led to introductions into this VC firm where I was able to come in first actually as CMO of a startup that the VC firm had invested in and was heavily involved in, which was a software similar to the startup that I have now that I and my team are working on now. So it was a software platform for startups to apply to ecosystem partners, as I call them, right? Investors, events, corporations, anybody looking for startups, right? Looking for deal flow, looking to source startups, screen startups. So I was brought in because they weren't quite sure how they wanted to take this to market. They tried going after startups and they realized, to sign up a startup on a platform and to get them to pay is really, really hard, if not almost impossible, because there's so many tools out there for startups. Regardless of which one may be better or not, there just are so many options out there for startups to go out there and get connected to investors and others. So as I'm listening to the team as we're going through workshops, I said, look, we need to go through multipliers. So what we did is we only focused on event organizers. Because of the event organizers, you have startups applying for the event to pitch, and then you have attendees, which are the investors, the corporate venture, corporate innovation, quite often even accelerators and incubators and so on. In government, a lot of government representatives there. So you really can capture everyone in the ecosystem through event organizers and then accelerators and incubators. But back then, we only focused on event organizers because also the VC firm had good connections. We had some other good connections with some really great event organizers. And we were able to focus there, bring 77,000 users on the platform in 15 months with a 200,000 euro marketing budget. And, that was quite successful. When my role there of getting them off the ground was done and they were ready to run or go to the next level, the VC then asked me if I'd want to help him expand his European Super Angels Club. So I kind of went from one thing literally under his roof because we had an office within his office to another thing. And the European Super Angels Club, I actually loved the concept and really appreciated it. It was taking startups that had established in one country in Europe, being that was basically their focus at that point was Europe. And they weren't ready to go for a really big round for the next level because they couldn't justify a valuation to expand globally because they've only, remembering for those that need just a quick reminder, Europe is how many 40, 50 different countries with more than that in different languages, right? So many countries actually have multiple official languages. Um, so, it's not like you can just go from Kentucky to Tennessee to Ohio and you've expanded, right? So you've got to take your product. It's like trying to sell from America to Latin America.
Yeah.
You know, English may get you there, but it's only going to get you so far. So we help startups find that middle ground from going, from jumping to go global to expand into a new country. So for example, you might find a super angel who's willing to invest a little more and guide the startup into entering, let's say, Spain, right? Or the UK from Germany or from Austria or from Hungary. And this would allow the startup to show better track record, show the ability to go international, and justify a larger round at a better valuation. So we did everything from bringing the startups in, coaching them, preparing them, getting their data room set up. A partner on RaiseLink, Alex Vusivic, who's originally from Serbia. Lived in Austria at the time, now lives in Berlin. He was working on the financial analyst side. And he was doing all the executive summary and the data room and work with the startups. And I and a couple others would do a lot of the pitch coaching, pitch training, getting the pitch decks ready, and then setting up a roadshow for them. So we took them on usually a 6-country tour, and we would partner with major banks, JP Morgan, consulting companies, who would help us then bring local people, investors, corporates in, based on the startups we had going in. So it would be a very impactful roadshow. The last one we did was cyber that I was involved in before I moved to the US was on cybersecurity. And we had 7 startups, 6 cities, and we walked away with over 330 leads for investment or proof of concept projects with corporations. So, and then I turned those over to the investment team, of course, to work through. So it was a great thing for the startups. It was a very fun thing to do. And I think it's something that is very fruitful. And if you're ever going to work with startups and ever charge them, a lump of money, doing it that way versus just saying, "Hey, I'm going to get you an investment," is the way to go. Because we didn't take a broker fee, say we're going to get an investment. There was an upfront fee. They chose to pay it. It wasn't very heavy at all for startups that are already on the market. And we were able to do this and grow our network simultaneously. So we had additional value, but help these startups.
And that experience compounded on the rest of your journey of helping others break through, barriers, reach higher than they would have otherwise, and set you up for what sounded like the next phase, the next season of your journey, which is coaching and mentoring a number of startup founders at 5 out of 7 that actually achieved funding. Is my timeline right there?
Yeah. So all the corporate work and the consulting company that I had led to working with the founders and the startups. One of the first projects I did was the World Bank project, where 5 of the 7 won their category. The final pitch competition won their category. I wasn't alone there. I had other great friends and mentor partners. A couple of us stayed up literally till 4 a.m. One night, a couple days before the finals, working with one startup, literally laying on the floor in the hotel, and got them ready, things like this. And, so all the corporate work, I would say, and then my personal entrepreneurial desires set me up beautifully, actually, just to transition right into the startup ecosystem. Because, one thing I did learn, and I'm very happy about this, I actually learned it going through a fantastic year-long sales leadership and coaching program for Sharing Plow Pharmaceuticals before they were bought by Merck, and this is a mistake many leaders make, when you're trying to help somebody get better, the last thing you can do is make them a clone of yourself. You got to give them the tools to understand how they themselves can turn what is magic within them, and the knowledge that you may have as a leader, a manager, a trainer, a coach, a mentor, and combine the two. Because the worst mistake that happens, and this happens unfortunately in sales all the time. Hey, you're our best salesperson. We're going to promote you, move you across the country. There's this team over here that needs, they just can't get the job done, and they need to change. They need to become like you. Go get them to be like you. And they're never going to be like you. And those almost always fail. And, when I was promoted in pharmaceuticals, I took over the team. First thing I came in and I said to the team, and the team had underperformed bottom 10% for 2 years in a row. I said, look, I'm your manager for company policy, for your expense reports and budgets and those things. But I'm your coach and consultant for everything else, because I'm here to help you. I'm here to facilitate what you need to be able to produce better results. So as long as you're all good with that and you realize that we're not going to stay at the bottom 10%, that in 6 months we're going to be in the top 50%, um, then we're good to go. If not, then I have to become your manager again, and that won't be fun for either of us. So I'm here to help you. I'm here to be your manager on policy, procedures, things that I have to manage. But otherwise, consider me as a resource and a partner to help you succeed. 6 months, we're in the top 10% of the company.
Nice.
So that's what I use. All of that I use to turn around and become successful as a mentor and coach, and then all the roles I've done in the startup ecosystem. And for example, I'm a proud mentor for an organization called the Venture Mentoring Team. It's thevmt.org. Great group of volunteer mentors. We don't take any money. In fact, we have an ethics policy that a mentor cannot take any paid position, contract, or invest in any of the startups we're mentoring. Why? Because quite often mentors have an alternative motive. Not all the time, but once in a while you see a startup that you may want to become involved in, you may want to invest in, and you use that mentorship, some very small percentage, but some use that to kind of turn them into what you want them to be before you make that investment. And that usually doesn't work either. I actually tried it because I thought the first thing I could do is I could turn my consulting business into a global Fortune 200s into a consulting and coaching business for startups and earn money off of the startups. I tried that once or twice. It was terrible. It's not a good experience, especially for early stage startups. If you're a startup that's on the market, a couple of years of revenue, that can be different. Early stage startups, they don't need that. They really need somebody who is there for their best interest. And that's what the BMT does. The other thing I loved about the BMT is 6 interviews to volunteer time, 45 minutes each, mini background check, and 6 weeks of training. And they now have, actually, they've been producing video training for mentoring startups. And they've been asked, for example, by Vanderbilt University to help come in and build mentor programs for the new NSFI core region for the 9 universities that are involved in that. We've done projects with Office Depot. We're mentoring at a Target Accelerator program right now. We're mentoring with the Emerge competition, Emerge event that includes pitch competitions with 100 startups in the finals of the pitch competition. We mentored last year for a couple of days, and this year they've actually asked us to expand that to about a month or 6 weeks of mentoring of those startups. So it's a great organization, and that's where I really see the learning from my corporate world and myself transitioning over to how I've been able to be successful in the startup ecosystem.
That's awesome. That's really cool. How
Thank
did
you.
how did all that bring you to where you're at today with RaiseLink?
So one of the things that, to be a great mentor, I think, or coach, is you have to listen. You have to listen, you have to look, and you have to continuously listen. And you have to ask questions and follow-up questions without leading people, you know. Um, and I did that. As I worked on this World Bank project, as I worked with everyone else, the accelerators, the incubators, the investors, the event organizers, some of the stuff we did through the VC firm was actually with like Chamber of Commerce, City of Vienna, and other government organizations. Um, I realized, as I said earlier, the people are great. People are all wanting to help and they're all trying to do their best. And so many people actually volunteer their time. It's amazing how many people volunteer their time. Like the great mentors that FAU Tech run with. There's about 150 mentors that are all volunteers volunteering their time to help startups like us. And so that part was there. But I started looking, and you mentioned it earlier, there was no Google translator, or not very good Google Translate back then. This was now a good 10 years ago. There also weren't a lot of good software tools. That's why that startup Matrix I talked about was so successful so quick. But I think there's one thing that one mistake that they made, or not mistake, but a decision that was made by the investors. We had grown it so fast that it got to the point where, in order to keep it going, we need to invest more money in it to continue to grow out the platform, to expand and enhance the tools and the features of the platform. And the investors decided they didn't want to do that, that they wanted to sell the data, get their money back, and move on. So that's what happened. That's why Deal Matrix isn't there today. But looking at my experience with Deal Matrix, looking at how accelerators and incubators and event organizers and investors go about sourcing, having startups apply, screening them, matching to them, and the selection management process, it's still a nightmare. And there's still, many of them are using basically tools from 2000. So, I talked with a major accelerator program recently, who runs 25 programs a year with about 500 startups applying to each one, over 1,000 startups in their investors in their network, and of course, mentors. Well, I don't know how many mentors, but got to be hundreds, if not thousands. And I said, what are your 3 pain points still? Now, I also knew before I asked that question that for him to manage all the data, the applications and everything, they use Airtable, Google Suite, which is probably, Google Forms and Google Sheets and others. They use HubSpot, and they pay a software developer to connect everything and build their homegrown solution around that. And they've been working on the next release of their homegrown solution around this for 10 months now. It's coming out in January. I said, when that comes out, what's your pain point still? And he said, you know what? I don't have good data oversight of the data I have. I have to deal with 25 accelerator programs with the applications, with 500 startups each. I don't have a good process to manage this. It's extremely time consuming and messy. And then the third one was, I don't have a way to match mentors and investors. That's good. What most people do is they have an Excel spreadsheet of all the information mentors sends out. And they have an Excel spreadsheet of what the startups are looking for. And they kind of put them side by side and they say, okay, I've got 150 mentors, 15 startups. How am I going to figure this out? I've heard as many as some places use 4 different Excel spreadsheets to do this, and it takes them a week.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, this is where I saw that one platform that puts a lot of these processes under one roof, that streamlines everything, can really make a difference for everyone in the ecosystem, because the process of sourcing, selecting, and screening and selecting, sourcing, screening, selecting startups is the same, whether you're an event organizer, an accelerator, incubator, an investor, a corporate program, a government looking to give grants or do something with startups, they all go through the same process. And it doesn't matter if you're a major venture fund that has an application process, actually pays a few $100s a month, but then dumps that data into Excel to send it out to their review committee or not. The processes, even today in 2023, are still very much based on tools that were around 20 years ago. Excel, paper pen, Google Forms, type forms, these things. So what we're building streamlines this process, starting off with the application screening, matching, and selection management process. And we're able to take what most people do, many startups, anybody who's at a startup knows this. You apply somewhere, on average, it's going to take you an hour to apply because you got to fill in questions, a lot of open text. And if it's a very short one, it might only take you 5 or 10 minutes, but you upload a pitch deck and that's about it. So you have to hope to God that the pitch deck you're uploading, which is usually designed for a presentation, which means there's a lot of words that need to go with it that are on the slides, because nobody wants words on the slides. They want pictures and charts and graphics. Your message doesn't really come through if you just upload a pitch deck. But you get these pitch decks where you get these very long Excel spreadsheets or just rolling boxes of text on the platform. And you have to go through them and decide, do I want to even consider talking to the startup or not? It's just like looking for a job, right? Well, what we are doing in step one, phase one, with the product that we're just releasing now, is just like somebody applying for a job and a recruiter going through the process of trying to see, is this candidate good or not? So you get the resume. Resumes are a 30-second scan for the first pass, and 90+% go in the no pile. Less than 10%, usually around 5%, go in the I want to look more about this person later pile. That's what you do with a startup application initially. It's usually not the investors, not the decision committee. It's usually some MBA analyst or some intern who looks through and tries to figure out, does this startup have what we're looking for? Because it was explained to me, maybe I have a cheat sheet or something, but I'm making a judgment based on everything that I know that we're looking for and what we think we'll invest in or we'll bring into our accelerator or we want to have at our event and what the decision makers are looking for. So that takes 3 to 10 minutes. With RaiseLink, we're actually able to take that process down to seconds. So we're saving somewhere between 3 to 10 minutes, calling an average of 5 or 6 minutes for every startup that applies to that investor, accelerator, incubator, event organizer, corporate program, and so on. Now, we do that with a matching algorithm score that we call an alignment score in the platform. So we collect about 1,000 data points, and we collect we have startups fill out their profile builder, all the information about their startups. The only long text we ask is, what's the problem? What's the solution in 400 characters or less? And how does somebody use your product or service in 3 steps, 175 characters per step? Every other question is either 50 characters or less or point and click. So the startup is able to complete our profile builder if they know what they're doing in less than 45 minutes, if they already have their pitch deck done and their financials and everything, because they should have all that figured out. And they can actually finish it in as fast as 20 minutes with some copying and pasting and things like that. Ecosystem partners, the investors, the corporates, the accelerators, incubators, fill out their own profile builder where we ask what they're looking for and what parameters. And for almost every question we ask, how important is this to you on a scale of 1 to 5? And so with this, we're taking the quantitative data points, pre or post revenue. With qualitative, how important is this to you? I only invest in post-revenue startups. Or I only want post-revenue startups in my accelerator program. So I'm going to mark this a 5 out of 5. That goes into that alignment score. A lot of things, a lot of the data, quantitative, qualitative, go into alignment score. So you can have us, going through RaiseLink, going through what the decision makers have put in by building their profile, or you can pay an intern, an analyst, or whatever, take 3 to 10 minutes to go through a pitch deck and say, this seems like it is, so I'm going to put this in the, I want to learn more about it pile. So that's part of the beauty of what we do is really it's that matching, that alignment between the two, streamlining the processes. But that amount of data that we're collecting already is so powerful. And from there, we continue to streamline the process. We have a built-in pipeline, so you don't need to have a CRM pipeline to manage your deal flow and everything else. There's a lot more great things that come with it, but it really boils down to speeding up the process, organizing and managing the process so it's more efficient, and having such great data insights that brings value even to the startups in our free product.
Wow. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Very awesome. And you're just releasing V1 like now?
Just now. So we've been bringing friends and family on, and we're getting ready to put out the official press release that we're launched. And so it's literally right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
The conclusion of one journey, the start of another.
Exactly. So, and I still volunteer. I still help out with mentors. I'm on the programming and selection committee at another accelerator on the BMT and many other things. But yeah, this has really been 7 years in the development for myself. All that time, or at this point, actually, I guess it's more like 8 or 9, looking and learning as I worked with all these different ecosystem players and talking to startups and talking to investors and accelerators, where are your pain points? It's really right there. And what I find amazing is, do we have competition? Of course we have competition. We have competition for this part of the platform and for this part of the platform and for this part of the platform, but we don't have competition for what we're building. And the reason for that is, if you look at a lot of the investor application platforms that are out there, there's many out there. They were started by investors. Angels List was started by some investors who needed deal flow. So they created Angels List. Then they made lots of money and they kind of let it go. It's still a great platform. You can still get good information on there. But it has a singular purpose. That's what I want to say about it. It has one purpose. In other areas, we have other competitors for this part of what we're building that maybe were students or did government innovation consulting on how to build an innovation ecosystem. Our team's done all of this. And that's why we're able to see through the clutter or take off the blinders, see through the clutter and understand that there's so many commonalities that if you can build this right, the power of the data that we're going to be able to bring to startups and ecosystem partners is huge. So that's the fun journey that I'm now on and where I match up the two.
That's awesome. It seems like there's a lot more to unpack just on where you're at today, the problem that you're solving, how you're solving it. It's really interesting. The journey that you've been through over 7 years to understand the problem. I think that in and of itself is something that could be discussed at greater length. But one of my roles and commitments is to land the plane on time. I know you have a lot of to do outside of sharing your story. So perhaps we plant the flag here, which is almost current day in our journey. We started where it all began. We came to the current point, and that could be a good place for us to potentially pick back up on a follow-on discussion, talking more about where you are, where the business is today, and where it's going in the future.
That'd be great. And I think I have just the thing. If I could share my screen for just a moment.
Certainly.
I think I have just the thing that would actually cover that. So we have two sides of the platform, right? We are a marketplace in some aspects. This is the startup dashboard. And if you're a startup, you can come on RaiseLink for free. Go to raiselink.co, fill in the profile builder. Your information is going to be shared with all the ecosystem partners that come on our platform. And there's a few things here that are quite special. So, as I mentioned, the profile builder's down here, just a quick idea on competitive advantage. You know, it is so simple. You simply put your competitors, you put your features or benefits here, and you check the boxes.
Nice.
It's really that simple to fill in um, and complete. But we do two things that are very special for startups. One is this chart right here. This is ecosystem partners aligned to your profile. So I talked about the matching alignment score before, how we do that. So what this tells me here is for RaiseLink, based on the data I put in and what's out there, which I fudge a little bit for the purposes of doing these kind of demos. I don't have any ecosystem partners where I match at 90% or above. And I don't have that many at 75 to or 76 to 90%. So what this tells me is my chance of getting investment, at least based on what's in RaiseLink, is not that high. Maybe I should go back and think about, how am I positioning my startup? So it gives me time to kind of do some insight to learn back to my history of trying to coach people, help them get better. The other thing it tells me is, if I'm not going to get investment, because we have to be honest with ourselves, less than 10% of all startups ever get investment, right? So if I get things like this, then I might say, boy, maybe I better focus on making sure I have revenue too. I might not be able to expand as fast as I want to, but if I can at least make sure I have revenue, even if I never get investment, I could create a good, solid, profitable business. So that's one thing we offer. And then the other thing that we do that I haven't seen out there, at least again, built in is under one roof, there's software out there that'll create like an executive summary for you. We auto generate that. Now, I said startups can come on for free. The only thing we charge startups for is $100 a year to be able to download this without watermarks and then share it to an email, print it out, take it with you to events, right? The best way to get investment is still personal connections. Always will be. It's just like getting a job or anything else. Personal connections are the best way to do it. But this one document covers in a summary everything that an investor or a corporate innovation person is going to want to know from day one. And it's in a quick, easy format. And we provide this to the ecosystem partners as well to streamline their review processes, the selection process, and the review committees. Because I've actually seen people sit down with, both startups or with or without a startup, but you have the review committee or a group of people trying to talk to a startup about an investment, and they're going over their pitch deck. And they're like, take me back to that slide about revenue. So now I'm hitting the back button, right? And I'm trying to find the slide about revenue. And then somebody says, well, take me back to your market. And now you got to go sit there and flip through other slides, or if everyone has a printout, papers are flipping. It's all right here on one page for them summarized. So if you're a startup and you present this, you come across as you know what you're doing, you're prepared, you've given your startup thought, and you understand what you're doing coming after investment money. So I just wanted to point those out for startups if they want to come on the platform. And right now we're only charging $50, $49 as an introductory price for the first year for that tool. So feel free to come on. And from there, you're right. We could pick it up and go forward, but in the spirit of where we spend most of the conversation giving back and trying to help others, we do that even in the free version for startups.
That's awesome. Chris, you are a wealth of insight.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
We covered a lot.
We did.
What
Feels like we just started.
It does. We're having fun. Before we hit record, we were talking about timelines, and you think about 45 minutes and it seems like a lot, but it goes by quick. I think we're well positioned for a follow-on discussion to unpack even some of the areas that we didn't get a chance to explore all the way. I'm curious, before we land the plane here, what did we address that you think we should have, or that we should before we get off the line?
Oh, wow. I think there's a lot for the entire startup ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem. some of the data I've seen, and there's not good data out there, but some of the data I've seen is the startup ecosystem globally is $6 trillion a year, right? And if you look at all the people that are working with startups and trying to help startups and everything, um, there's a lot of things that actually get in the way of those people trying to help startups. I recently joined the Florida Business Incubator Association, and they did a study on incubation managers' time, where they spend their time, and compared it to a 2011 study. The amount of time that managers of incubators spend helping startups and from 2011 to today has decreased by 39%. The amount of time they spend on governance has gone from 0 to 10%. The amount of time they spent on fundraising and marketing their accelerators or their incubators has increased over 50%. So this to me was a very eye-opening and great study that was done. It goes to the heart of where I think RaiseLink can really help bring more data and data clarity, but also bring more efficiencies so that those who are trying to help the ecosystem, help startups in the ecosystem, have the time to do that because they've been losing the time. So I think that's one thing that I would say I'd like to leave as something that would be, an area to explore. And in fact, and one of the people I worked with on Deal Matrix, she was a college student at the time, an intern, just posted on LinkedIn asking where is the spot where innovation managers go to share information and to learn from each other. She just posted this on LinkedIn yesterday. So there's a lot of local organizations like the Florida Business Incubator Association, but globally and nationally, this is still something that is evolving. There's really not even degree programs on incubation management, but it's a $6 trillion industry.
Interesting.
So think about that.
Very interesting.
Okay.
I think you and your team and the platform you're building with RaiseLink is well positioned to provide meaningful support and to facilitate the change of paradigm that's keeping pace with the change of how these incubation managers are spending their time on governance, on marketing and fundraising, and bring back some level of equilibrium and to their workflows. Not to mention the value that's being provided to the end users on the startup front as well. It's
Yeah,
really cool what you're doing.
yeah,
Jeremy.
yeah, definitely. And you mentioned one thing, and I'm so focused on answering your questions and listening to you. None of what we're doing with RaiseLink could happen without my team. So while I've had this idea for quite a while, Pete Martinez had actually incorporated RaiseLink with the idea of creating a managing platform for startups and investors. And he was looking for somebody to come in and run and build the company as his co-founder. And so we talked and I shared the bigger vision and he said, you know what, that's what we need. So he brought me in as CEO to run and build the team. And I've been able to do that with Alex, who I mentioned earlier. Another key member being Balash Shaliv, who has actually ran product innovation and strategy for Bose Corporation before he came here, worked for a VC firm and others. So he has a wealth of experience and product management and product development. And then we have a fantastic investor who owns a software development house, who's also a mentor with me at the venture mentoring team. And his team is really what has allowed us to build um, such an awesome platform that is very user intuitive. So team is there. You have to have team. And I probably talked too much about me. None of this would have happened today. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you with RaiseLink hitting the market without all of these great people involved. And I'm thankful every day for every one of them. And I appreciate the opportunities that Pete gave me to come in and build this team and build this company and build this product based on the vision and my learnings over the years. Pete in his own right is a very accomplished man. He was 32 years vice president of IBM, ran the IBM Innovation Center here in Boca Raton with in the neighborhood of 15,000 people, ran their Latin America, worked on many first AI projects that were even precursors to what was used with AI for the COVID vaccines, and has a wealth of knowledge. And it was quite an honor for me to have him trust me to come in and build this company in the vision that I laid out for him, and for him to agree to that. So thanks for giving me the extra couple of minutes to thank my team.
Absolutely. A powerhouse team, a multifaceted platform solving real issues in the startup ecosystem for both startups and for the incubators and investment community that's attached to them. You've got an awesome wealth of insight and experience that you brought to the table today, and a powerful vision for the road ahead. Chris, thank you for coming on the call today and for sharing.
Thank you, Logan. Have a great day.
Absolutely. See you in the next one.
See ya.